Hello, today we're going to paint some lemons. What I did is I took a little piece of MDF board. This one is a 4x6. And I already had some yellow painted in the background. I have a little bit of molding paste on the bottom. And I just slapped a little bit of red and then yellow on top because yellow is a color that's very hard to cover. So if you're going to do lemons and do less work on them, if you have already a surface that's already primed with color and all of that, it's going to make your life a lot easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my light yellow and I'm just going to put a little bit of that color on my lemons. And it doesn't matter right now where the color goes because we're just putting some color on our surface. And I did the pencil lines dark so that you could see them on the video, but normally I wouldn't put the pencil lines that dark. Just enough so that you can see them and know where you're going. But as you can see, lemons are yellow, so there is no judging where the color is going to be. You know, yellow is yellow. And I'm going to put this right here, and that little inside of our lemon right here is yellow, and the little edge of our lemon is yellow. See, minimum effort, right? Not much. So we know this lemon here is way in the back, and it's barely going to be seen, right? So we're going to make that one darker. I'm going to take a little bit of my yellow ochre and I'm really going to make this little guy darker right here. Because we know there's a lemon there, but we really don't need to see it, right? And then we know that the bottom part of this lemon is going to be darker. And I'm just, see how lightly I'm tapping this? I'm not really going crazy with the color. I'm just putting a little bit of that brown on there. And we know that he has to have some brown around here because he's behind this guy here right in the front, right? So right now all I'm doing is putting in our colors. Then this guy is underneath this one, right? So I'm gonna take a little bit of my yellow and go underneath that little line right there and put a little yellow. That's a little bit darker because that's going to be our shade. And you can tell already that these guys are on top, right? So we know that this guy is furthest to the front than this guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of that darker yellow on the back of a lemon and having molding paste as a background gives you texture, so you don't have to work it so hard. And I'm going to put a little bit of that color right on top of here so that it all blends together. See that? Okay, now we're going to have to start putting some lights in here. And we know that the light is coming from this area. Oh, we're going to make sure that the light is coming from that area. So I'm going to take a little bit of titanium white and I'm just going to hit the surface with that a little bit. I'm going to wipe my brush clean and I'm going to just move it around and we'll put some yellow on there later. I'm going to put a little light source right on here. And I'm not painting yet, I'm just putting some light sources in here. And I'm going to put a little light in here around the little dimple that it has on the back. And I'm going to put a little light on top of here. And I'm not going to leave them like that, but I just want to, just for right now, start putting our colors in. We're going to do the shading and all of that later, but right now we just want to map out how our lemons are going to look, right? And then this little guy on here should have a little bit of white. And he should have a little white here on top of that little nipple, right? So now we know that these little guys here are going to have to be darker than this. So I'm going to take a little bit of raw umber. And I'm going to put it right here. Just a tad. Not much, just a little tad. And we know that anything that's gonna touch one lemon and the other has to be darker in the corners. But I'm gonna load up my yellow ochre first in my brush. And then I'm gonna take a little bit of that brown and mix it together and see how dark that is. So I'm gonna come here and very softly put your brown in there. And this is almost like oil painting, but this is acrylics. See that? And I'm moving my paint around. And what happens is we don't have those sharp edges. Everything works together. And I'm gonna cover a little bit of that white, see that? So I'm gonna take a little bit of yellow ochre again. A lot of this is repetitive. So if you get into the habit of doing repetitive things, your design will have a little bit more coordination. So I'm gonna come here and do the yellow because this area here is darker. And I'm barely pressing on my brush. If you take a look, you'll see that my brush is barely touching the surface. See that? But we know it's darker. And this little guy here is gonna have a little shade from the guys on top. And I'm using an oval brush just because my lemons are round and I wanted to make. So right here, this little guy, this little lemon is almost too round, right? So it needs to have a little, kind of like a little dimple like this one here sticking out. So I'm gonna come here and make this just a little bit wider. See that? So now I have a little dimple in there. This little guy has a dimple. And this little guy has a dimple back here. See that? So I'm gonna take a little bit of my yellow ochre again in my brown. And I'm gonna put some of that color here and behind this little guy. Now the white really stands out because you have a dark color against it. Now this little guy in the back, I really want to make dark because I want to hide him. I know that he's there, but we don't really need to see him, right? We know he's there. I'm gonna take a little bit of yellow in my white and just highlight that a little bit. And I have no water in my brush. Okay, so now we gotta put some little browns up here on this lemon. So I'm gonna take a little bit of my ochre and I'm gonna come almost to the front here and put some of the dark color right on this side here so that we know all the colors kind of match, right? And I'm gonna put a little bit more right here. See that? Now we can come back with our lighter yellows and go over them and start lightening up our lemons, right? I'm gonna put a little bit of darker right here because I want to separate this little guy from this little lemon here. And I'm gonna take some of my pure yellow and some white and I'm gonna slap some of that color on here. And what happens is it gives me almost like a little shine on my lemon. See how much brighter this one is than the other guys? So I'm gonna do the same thing. Take my yellow, a little bit of white, and I'm gonna come right here and lighten my lemon. Because if you keep them all kind of dull, it's gonna look like a whole bunch of dull lemons, but we want them to look really nice. And I'm gonna add a little bit more of a highlight there so that you could see it. And this is just white. And I'm gonna make this guy here a little bit more noticeable. Okay. We wanna put some little yellow and white around this little guy here. I'm gonna turn this a little bit. Okay. We're gonna put a little bit of white and yellow right in front here. And you see how those lemons are starting to pop? Now this guy needs to be a little bit darker right up here. Has to have like a little curve right here. There we go. because I want him to be back there, but I want to have a difference between this guy and this guy up here, right? Okay, so we want to make this side really light. So I'm going to take my yellow and my white, and I'm going to really lighten that front part of the lemon. See that? So now those lemons are looking really good. And I'm going to just put a little bit of that dark right in here so that we have a little nipple right there. Now for the little center of those little areas, those are going to be green. So I'm picking a really bright green so that there can be a contrast. So I'm going to take a little bit of that light green and I'm going to put it in there with some little hairs coming out. See that? I'm going to do the same thing here, have some little hairs coming out. And they're not really hairs, they're just kind of little marks on a little lemon area. And I'm going to take a little bit of that brown. I haven't rinsed my brush, and I'm going to go around that. And what happens is this guy now is underneath there. And I'm going to take a little bit of my yellow and my white, and I'm going to go on the outside of that. And that will make me a little depth. See that? And I can go a little darker right in here. There we go. So now you can see that there's a little area there. I'm going to do the same thing here. Put the little dark. Then put a little bit of light yellow and white. And put a little bit of dark right here because you want to see that little indentation there. My little lemon right here, I'm just going to make this a little lighter. And all these pencil marks are going to disappear when we put the background in. So don't worry about that. And I'm going to put just a tad of that yellow and white right on top. See? Now, one thing that I don't like is a straight line here. See that? That doesn't look good. So what we're going to do is take a little bit of the yellow and the white. And you got to kind of have to look back once in a while and see what you're painting. I'm doing that all the time. And I never paint in one area constantly. I move my brush around. So now I'm going to put a little bit of more white in here. Pure white. There we go. And a little bit more here. And move it around. Move that around. Okay. And this little guy underneath here should be a little bit darker so that we can separate him from the other lemons that are on there. And I'm going to make this really dark. Okay. So we know that this little guy has to be a little bit rounder on top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush and just flatten this out a little bit. And now he looks oval. He doesn't look totally round. There. Okay, so we're going to make this a little, some kind of little plate that it's a bowl that is in. So I'm going to take a little bit of this dark brown and put it right in the background here. Because this little guy is sitting in a bowl somewhere, right? Let's do the whole area. And you can already see that those lemons are sitting inside that bowl, right? I'm going to paint it this way so that you can see it without my hand being in the way. And when you're painting at home, turn your surface around. I'm just doing this because I'm teaching you how to do it, but I'm constantly turning my surface around. Now this little guy needs a little dark right in here. It's kind of his shade. So I'm gonna wipe, I'm constantly wiping my brush on my paper towel. And I don't want that out there, but that's okay. And I'm gonna take some pure white and just lighten that up a little bit. And that gives me a little highlight. Pick a little bit of yellow. Gonna do the same thing up here. Pick up a little bit of white. Nice. Okay. Just a little darker right here on the edges. With a little bit of that raw umber. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, so we got to do something with the bowl and the background. So I'm just gonna move this out and let it dry a little bit, because I need a little bit more color right there. But I need to let it dry a little bit. Okay. The bowl, I'm gonna make the little rim pure white, and I'm not necessarily gonna cover every little surface because this is an old bowl, right? And I have this cobalt blue that looks really good against my yellow, and I'm gonna come here and almost dry brush that blue onto my bowl. See that? And it doesn't necessarily have to go all the way to the bottom. And it doesn't have to be even either. It can be darker right underneath here. And I like it better when it's not solid one color, because you want the roughness, and these old bowls had a lot of roughness in them. So let me just put this a little bit right here. Nice, I like that. I really like that a lot. I'm gonna make this just a tad darker. And a little tad darker right underneath the bowl. See that? And see how I'm not bringing the color all the way to the bottom? I'm letting some of that white show right here. Just gonna wipe that over. Nice, 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 nice. Okay, so now we got to put a little color around these lemons so they pop. So I'm going to turn this upside down, and I'm going to take my burnt umber straight, and I'm going to come here and go around every one of those lemons. See that? And I'm going to walk my paint out, because that's going to help my lemons pop. I'm gonna rinse my brush a little bit and walk this out until it disappears. See that? Take a little bit more. And the raw umber is almost almost transparent, so it's not gonna go on real heavy on our surface here, but it's gonna give us some little shade around the lemons so that they pop. And some people like to do their whole background that color. I just want to show that there's some darkness over there, but I like the light on top. And what it does is it helps my lemons be brighter. See that? And this little guy needs to come in just a tad right here. There. Okay. So let's put a little bit of bright yellow on top of this little guy here with some white so it really stands out against that brown. And we're going to put a little bit of that on top of this guy here. And we're going to make this little guy on the end a lot brighter. See how easy this is? Anybody can do this. Anybody can do this. Just using some basic colors. And let's do this little area a lot brighter. And make that lemon pop. And this guy in the front really needs to stand out. So I'm just going to put some of that right up to the edge of that other lemon. There we go. Cool. Okay, so practice your lemons. Let me know how they work out. Send me a picture. And if you want the kit, you know, you can always get the kit online. Enjoy your painting and have a good weekend.